So like I said before, my name is Charlotte Woods. I am a lead developer of content and education at the Brand Builders. I am really delighted to be exploring this topic with you. It's a topic we've likely all been thinking about post-Tokyo, leveraging a major games experience. So, thank you for joining me on this fine Tuesday morning or Monday, depending on where you are in the world. Might be afternoon, might be evening. Today, I'm really excited to be exploring how athletes can leverage their major games experience through activating and communicating their personal brand. So we've just witnessed a spectacular Olympic and Paralympic Games in Tokyo. And with the Commonwealth Games coming up next year now is really the perfect time for athletes to start thinking about and looking at how they can leverage their games experience. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which we meet today. I am meeting here on Yuggurrpul land and would like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I invite all of you to consider the land on which you are currently attending the webinar on. So here's the agenda for today. We'll be talking about why brand matters after the games for athletes who have experienced profile growth and for those who haven't. We'll then be looking at how they can leverage that games experience. So what's possible, what's available, what kind of opportunities can they go for? And then we'll explore how athletes can use their brand and their vision for their brand and activities to connect with opportunities such as sponsorship, growing their social media profile, media growth, all those great things. At the end of the webinar, we will hopefully have some time for a Q&A. So if anything that we look at today inspires a question or a thought or an insight, because I know you have your own experiences and expertise, pop it in the chat and we'll get to it at the end. So for those of you who haven't met us before, we're the Brand Builders. We work globally with sports organizations and their athletes to really empower them with the knowledge and the resources and the tools that they need to elevate their pathway in and beyond sport. So today, we'll be diving into just one of those topic areas that we cover in our athlete pathway education. The thing that really underpins every single thing that we do, and it's athlete brand or personal brand. So I'm looking forward to discussing that with you more in just a second. But before we do that, I think the one thing you really need to know about us is that we're deeply passionate about what we do. We believe that athlete brand gives athletes unique clarity of who they are on and off the field or off the court or out of the pool, whatever it is, so many different sports, so many different metaphors. But it gives them unique clarity of who they are outside of sport. And it lights a pathway towards the right kind of opportunities for them. We often say that we lead from the heart, and it's true. We use our values to guide everything that we do. We're very much values driven. And at the core of that is really a very simple wish. We want athletes to have a fulfilling and rewarding time in sport. And we see brand as being an integral part of making that happen. So let's look at why. Let's start with what athlete brand actually is. I won't go into too much depth from this because I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces who attended our webinar series last year. So a lot of you are probably familiar with, how we approach brand already. But every athlete has a brand. It isn't magically created when they hit a certain follower count or they have a particular amount of media mentions or they go viral on TikTok, as we saw during this games. TikTok was a big player in helping athletes leverage their games experience, grow their profile. It isn't numbers based. They have a brand, whether they're aware of it or not. It's very simply the impression they make and the impact they create. And to, break that down even further, it's how people remember them and what they remember them for. So what sort of things do people remember? It's their interests, their passions, their values, their message, what they stand for, their visual style, their code of conduct, so how they treat other people. It's those interesting little things about them, those unique details about the athlete that stand out to people. They might not remember every single one of those brand elements after they have a conversation or an online interaction or they see them in the media, but there's always something that sticks out. For example, one of my Paralympic athletes that I mentored this year is really passionate about disability awareness and inclusion in sport specifically, which was inspired by her personal journey in sport as an elite athlete. And she wants to really show the world and show young athletes what's possible and to inspire kids with disabilities to join parasport specifically. And she communicates that on social media, in the media, in her everyday interactions with people. And for me, that will always be the thing that sticks out about her. That's the thing that I remember about her, is her passion for disability awareness and inclusion within parasport. So that's the impression that she left for me. And it will be different for every person. She was also passionate about reading. Her schoolmates might remember that about her a little bit more, but we all leave an impression, create an impression, and it's those little details, those authentic parts of ourselves that people remember about us, and that's what creates our brand. So why does this matter so much after the games? I want to break this into two types of athletes. Firstly, let's look at an athlete who did experience profile growth during the games. It might have been in line with their expectations. Maybe they were expecting to become TikTok famous or become a viral star in the media, but they might also not have been expecting it. It might have been a complete surprise. Maybe they medaled when they weren't expecting to. Maybe they did something really funny online that resonated with people. So they may have expected this profile growth, they may have not. And when they don't expect that profile growth, it can be pretty surprising, and they're not, they don't know what comes next after this period. So why does brand matter for this athlete? For an athlete that experiences that profile growth, they are likely now in a position where they are being offered more opportunities. So brands are approaching them, the media is approaching them. They had a big spike in their social media following, more sponsorship, media appearances, all those things. Or they may now have the confidence to engage those opportunities themselves. So this period for them is really about, okay, I know I did well, I know I've become a little bit of a star, or I had more profile growth than I expected. How do I make the most of this opportunity? So for this athlete, it's really vital that they know their brand so they can choose the right opportunities for them and know when to say no to the wrong ones. If you're an athlete who is passionate about animal rights, and let's say you have a cosmetic brand that approaches you, and your immediate answer is a big yes. They offer you really good financial compensation for representing them. You know you're going to get a lot of media attention and exposure through partnering with this brand because they're a global brand. You know it's going to help you grow your social media following because they want that to be part of the relationship. And they have a decent following themselves. Maybe there's career opportunities that they're going to offer them, like an internship, doing public speaking, helping them develop their skill set. Why would they pass that out? It sounds fantastic. It sounds great. Why would they say no? So remember, they're passionate about animal rights. What would you say if I told you that that brand, that cosmetic brand, tests on animals? Probably not a good fit anymore. It doesn't align with their values. It doesn't align with that passion. It conflicts. So if they know their brand, if they're really aware of it and all those different elements, they know when to say no, even if the offer looks really, really good. Maybe they could have some influence. Maybe it's not about saying no. Maybe it's about coming in and saying, hey, could we change this? Could you stop testing on animals? Is that a thing we could work towards as a bigger impact statement as part of our relationship? And that really brings me to the next point for this athlete. They need to have clarity of their values, what they stand for, how they want to be seen, all those integral parts of brand, so that they can protect that brand integrity. Their brand, it really is an asset that needs to be protected. And they should feel good about every relationship that they have, all those commercial relationships. They should feel good about how they're represented in the media. They should feel good about every conversation that they leave. And they should feel like they're in control of leveraging their brand and how it's communicated. And if they've had that profile growth, it might feel like it's a little bit out of control. They're just suddenly having these great experiences thrown at them. How do they make sure that they're still saying yes to the right things and representing them in line with their values, how they want to be seen, the kind of legacy that they want to leave as an athlete? So having awareness of that really helps those athletes. The other big thing is it can help them shape the narrative of their games experience and also how they're portrayed to the public. So if they've experienced some natural profile growth, it's probably been a little bit out of their hands. It just happened. Maybe they did something silly. Maybe they did something funny and it just went viral on the internet. Maybe they were known for doing something on the track at the games, at the actual competition that, got some media attention. If they know their brand, they can help shape that narrative so that they're still in control of it. So that when they tell their story, they're telling their story. It's not the media telling their story. It's not other athletes telling their story. It's them. They're still in control of that narrative. Now, for athletes who don't experience that profile growth, maybe they were expecting some profile growth and now they're disappointed that they didn't. Maybe they weren't expecting to experience profile growth. They were just happy to have the experience. Growth was never part of the plan. They just wanted to be there, have fun, compete. It's about the sport for them. It's not about the attention. For these athletes, it's really important that they understand that brand is still for them. It's not just for the athletes who go viral on TikTok. It's not just for the athletes who are an overnight success in the media. It's for every athlete. It's for the athletes who also don't experience that profile growth. That doesn't mean they can't engage opportunities. They can't do great things with their brand. There's still many, many ways for them to leverage that games experience and activate their brand in great ways that are right for them. So like I said before, this athlete, they may have been expecting profile growth. And when this doesn't happen, they're often unsure of what the next steps are. Can they get sponsored? Are they deserving of promoting themselves on social media? I hear that a lot. Am I deserving of actually posting on social media? Do I have a right? Do people want to hear from me? Can they start that podcast they thought that they would start after the games, about their games experience, what they learned, talking about their amazing medal experience? And when that doesn't happen, do they still have a right to go and talk about that or start that podcast? Of course, the answer is a big yes. What it might mean is that they need to engage those opportunities independently. And I think there's some benefits, to be honest, of not having a world of opportunities just thrown at you and having to go out and independently engage them, because it means that they have full choice of who they go for. They are totally in control of that. They get to, go out and pick fun brands or unusual brands, or the places that no other athlete is looking. It's also an opportunity for them to tell their story. So regardless of their performance, they are forever an Olympian, a Paralympian, a Commonwealth Games athlete. They hold that title forever. It holds value. They learn things during the games. They put their values into action, I'm sure. Their message came up. Maybe they learned something about mindset or humility, or learning to accept not getting the result that you wanted or expected. So it's still an interesting story that they should be telling and that they should be weaving into their communications activity. So it's about empowering them and helping them understand that just because you didn't get a medal or you didn't get that profile growth doesn't mean you can't still tell your story and your games experience. And then finally, for this athlete, brand can really help them identify what those opportunities are that they can go for, so what the right ones are. It can help them find opportunities in unusual places, like I was saying before, and we'll get more into that later, how they can actually go about connecting their brand with the opportunities that are right for them. Regardless of whether or not they experience profile growth, a major games provides a unique opportunity for every athlete to communicate and activate their brand to achieve their vision and goals. They don't need to win a medal. They don't need to have gone viral. It's about looking internally at their passions, their interests, what they stand for, their values, all those brand elements, and connecting that with their goals and their vision. So this is for every athlete. In terms of how they leverage that games experience, what kind of opportunities that they go for, it will look different for every athlete. For some, it's about identifying commercial opportunities that excite them. Maybe that's doing paid public speaking. Maybe it's becoming a sponsored athlete, doing some ambassadorships, commercial engagements. What are the ones that feel right for them and that are exciting and help them activate their brand? Other athletes, they take a real focus on social media. They feel like now is the perfect time to communicate their brand online. Maybe they didn't go viral on TikTok, but they loved what other athletes were doing. They feel like they understand the formula now. They feel like the kind of content that they could create, they have an understanding of. So now is about starting that TikTok account. Didn't go viral in the games, but that doesn't mean that they can't look at developing some content and creating that online presence after the games. For other athletes, it's going to be about igniting their career pathway. So doing some skills training, maybe looking at doing an internship that activates their brand, maybe starting their LinkedIn profile and becoming a thought leader in their area of expertise. For other athletes, it's going to be about creating impact for a cause they're passionate about. Maybe they've always wanted to be an ambassador for a particular charity, and let's say it's the RSPCA, we're still that athlete that's interested in animal rights and activism, and so they connect with the RSPCA. Then it also provides an opportunity for them to strategically tell their story. So public speaking, podcasts, writing articles, doing school talks, clinics, telling that story. Because it is an interesting story, regardless of how the games went. You went to a games, you went to the Olympics, you went to the Paralympics or the Commonwealth Games. So telling that story strategically within their communication activities. And for some athletes, it's about starting a business. It's amazing how many athletes are entrepreneurial. I mean, not really when you think about, the type of person that you have to be to enter that athlete pathway. But a lot of them have big business hopes. They want to be a freelancer. They want to start their own business. They want to start a coaching business, all sorts of things. And so that period after the games is about looking for those more business opportunities. So it looks different for every athlete. And there's so much more than this. These are just some of the general ones, the ones that are the most popular amongst athletes. But for every athlete, it looks different. It's about identifying what their personal vision is and then going for the opportunities that are right for them. One thing is for certain, this time after the games, is the perfect time for them to activate their brand. There's been some excitement around the games. It's fresh in the general public's mind. The athlete likely feel some renewed confidence. They might feel like they are more deserving of going out and getting sponsored. Not that they aren't, in between games, but often that period after the games, they say, okay, I'm an Olympian or I'm a Paralympian. Now it was my first games. Yes, I feel confident enough with that title to go and get sponsorship. So, making the most of that renewed sense of confidence. Of course, it doesn't mean that they can't activate their brand at other points of the journey in, other years other than game years. But why pass up an opportunity like this? It is a really good time for them to get active and communicate and activate that brand. And the key really, and this isn't going to be a surprise to anyone, but the key to unlocking those opportunities is their brand. So getting sponsorship, commercial engagements, public speaking, campaigning for a cause, business ventures, all those things, the key to unlocking those opportunities, the right ones for them, is their brand. It's their interests, their values, their code of conduct, their visual style, all those elements of brand that if you've attended any of our other webinars, you'll be very familiar with. These provide clues or puzzle pieces that will direct them in the right, towards the right opportunities for them. So how do they do that? How do they connect that opportunity to their brand elements? Let's say that we've got an athlete who wants to be known as a leader. They have a passion for mental health and they have an interest in writing. How can their brand connect them to sponsorship, career opportunities, communicating their brand? How can they use those pieces of the puzzle to connect with their vision? So they want to be known as a leader. Where could that lead them? That's a little bit of, not a pun, but, play on words. Where could that lead them? Let's say they do some mentoring with emerging athletes. They want to help that next generation of athletes. They want to be a leader to them. They want to be a role model for them. So they get in touch with their sports organization, or they get in touch with a sporting program, or even some local schools, and say, I'd love to mentor some of your emerging athletes. I'd love to pass down what I've learned as an elite athlete in sport. The highs, the lows, everything in between, I want to pass that on to the next generation. That would be activating that leadership part of their brand. They could also start looking for grants and funding to develop their leadership skills. There's lots of them going around in sport. So helping them to develop that skill. It's not always about immediately going out and acting on that brand element. Sometimes they need to develop it a little bit. So looking for those opportunities where they could do that, using their brand to fill out that grant application, to make themselves the best candidate. Then we've got that passion for mental health. So where could that lead them? I think a very obvious answer is charity ambassador. But it's about, looking for the right ways to be a charity ambassador, which ones to go for, which charities to work for, how you actually be of value to them. One of the athletes that we've done a lot of work with in the past, and if you've attended other presentations, you've probably heard of him, Damon Jenke. He's a wheelchair basketballer. He, in 2022, will be wheeling himself from Ipswich to Mackay, which is a very long distance. I couldn't tell you the exact distance because I'm not good with that sort of thing, but it's quite a long distance, Ipswich to Mackay in Queensland, Australia. And he's doing that to raise funds and awareness for his favourite mental health charity, Livin, because he has a personal connection to them. It's about his personal story. So it makes him feel good, helps him give back, but also because it's connected to his story, there's some great stories that he and Livin, the charity, can tell together. And it's good for him too, because he gets sponsorship, he gets media attention. He's already had, several media appearances because of that. He's done podcasts. He's recently gone a little bit viral on LinkedIn, talking about his mental health experience. So it's also about, how he activates that opportunity using his brand. Then maybe this athlete wants to start developing that career pathway. How could that passion for mental health help them? Maybe they intern for a mental health nonprofit and they use their games experience to maybe get some extra attention for the mental health charity. They do some blog writing for them. They do some guest articles. They help that nonprofit get some media attention through using their own profile. And then lastly, we've got this interest in writing. How do they activate that? Maybe they start a blog. Again, it could be about that passion for mental health. It could be sharing their leadership insights. Their elements of their brand should interconnect. They should weave together. They shouldn't be standing in isolation. Everything should sort of gel and be very cohesive. So they can also use those other parts of their brand, those other clues towards the opportunities when they're doing these other activities. So it might mean starting a blog, might be writing some guest articles. Maybe they didn't experience that profile growth during the games, but they would like to. They would like to get some media attention. They feel like that would be good for them. Maybe with sponsorship, maybe growing their social media, all sorts of things. So they need to get themselves out in the media independently. They need to take control of that narrative themselves because the opportunities haven't come organically to them. And that's okay. It's the norm for most athletes. So instead, they can seek to engage that media independently themselves. Maybe they don't want to do interviews, but because they love writing, they can write those guest articles. So again, that's a great way for them to tell their story, communicate their brand. I think when we talk about communicating brand and telling your story, people often jump to public speaking and they think, well, that's probably the main way or the best way that you could do it. Well, I think every athlete should develop their public speaking skills because it's a good skill to have for life. It might not be a priority for them. It might not feel like the best way for them to activate that brand. So instead they can look for other ways to tell that story other than public speaking. And writing is a great way to do that, especially if they see that as falling within their skill set. So you can see that each of these elements of their brand, they can use to connect themselves to those opportunities. They provide those little clues. It doesn't mean that they need to come up with a huge list of activations. Sometimes it's very simple stuff. It's just getting themselves active, staying visible, and doing what feels right for them. And this period after the games is just a perfect opportunity to do that. Now, with that all in mind, what's the post-games game plan? Very tricky little wordplay there. What's the post-games game plan? Let's keep it really simple. During this time, there are 3 things athletes can do to leverage the games. 3 really simple things. Stay visible. Let the world celebrate their achievements. Connect with their online audience, their online network. Jump on the opportunities that do come their way, or go out and independently engage them. Do what you can to stay visible. This is really important for those athletes who didn't experience profile growth. They probably feel like they have no right to feel visible. That's often the feedback that we get, is that they don't have a right to go out and get sponsorship. They don't have a right to go out and engage media, but they do. They still have a great story to tell. They just need to go out and do it independently. So this is a great period for them to stay visible, not to fade into the background and say, well, Paris 2024 is going to be here before I know it. I'll try again then. Because, you know, they might not experience that profile growth at that games. So they need to stay visible in the ways that are right for them. Next, they need to be looking at communicating their brand. So social media, public speaking, writing those guest articles, having conversations with important people, maybe doing that mentoring, really looking at communicating their brand in big and small ways. But that's an important activity for them to focus on post games. And then finally, activate. They need to find those opportunities that interest them. They don't need to have a big, long list or a really complicated plan. They just need to identify a few things that really perk their interest, that they feel like, yeah, that would be lots of fun, or I feel like that would be really valuable for me. I've always wanted to be a public speaker, or I've always wanted to campaign for animal rights or spread a message. This is a great period for them to start doing that. I'll leave you with this. All athletes can create a powerful and impactful brand. They can all leverage their games experience, but it looks different for every athlete. And the key really, as we've talked about all the way along, is about using their brand to connect their vision with opportunity and looking for the opportunities that are uniquely right for them. So if we have any Q&A, which we might not, we might have some shy people. Okay, so we don't have any questions and answers. If you do have a question, you can pop it in the chat now and we can have a talk about it. But you could also always email us, talk to us after the session. If this has inspired any questions or insights that you'd like to share with us, please feel free. I want to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us. If you'd like to connect with us after the webinar, you can visit us on our website. I've got the address up here. If you'd like to send us a question or an insight or share something with us, you can reach us via this email below. But I really want to say thank you for joining us. You know, this really is such a great opportunity and a period for the athletes to stay visible, communicate their brand, activate their brand, and chase those opportunities that are right for them. And also, because we've recorded this webinar, you'll get a recording, everyone will. And you'll also be getting a tip sheet on some of the key learnings from this session that you can pass around to other colleagues, faculty, athletes if you want to, but you'll be getting access to that after the webinar. But thank you for everyone for joining us. I can see some messages in the chat now. Very nice to hear from you all. And I look forward to hopefully catching up with all of you at some point later in the future. And I'm wishing you all very well, and also your athletes, and hope they go out and activate some of these teachings. Thanks, everyone.